Lately I've been thinking about this life and how it brought me here. Staring at this man in the mirror, I see him often. He'll wipe my tears. Only if you knew what I was going through. Only if you walked it in my shoes. Certain things don't like to talk about, but I'll always remember. The chaos in my mind turned my heart out in November. I'm surrounded by too many doors, not sure which way I entered. But I'm rocking with my loved ones, let you know that front and center. Found out my skin's tough as leather, I can storm through any weather. Addiction was the hardest battle.
Welcome to the Messages Hope podcast, where the hope stands for hearing other people's experience. My name is Adam.
My name is Mike, and today on the show we have Henry's other half, Monica.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So you heard Henry last week, and now here's Monica.
Yep.
So welcome to the podcast. You already kind of know how this goes. We're going to kind of start at the beginning and kind of go through until now, pretty much.
Okay. Let's do it.
Monica, tell us what it was like for you growing up.
Well, my first memory was of my dad, my biological father, beating my mom. I've done a lot of therapy in my life, so they kind of ask you, what's your first memory? And that's really my first memory. My childhood was pretty tumultuous. If you've ever done an ACEs test, the Adverse Childhood Experiences test, I'm a 10 out of 10.
Yep.
A couple of my therapists told me that's pretty unusual. 3, 4, 5, you're pretty probably traumatic experience, but yeah. I'm a 10 out of 10, but I do not recommend it, and I'm grateful for that. I always tell everybody I'm a 10. I fucking have 10 yeses on that test, and I'm here today, alive, breathing, clean, and living a pretty good life. So
you know what's crazy about that ACE, right? So I never really I did therapy, early recovery, but it was like I was so like wired in my head, and I was already like supplementing with the 12 steps that I really didn't go in there and really discover anything. Yeah. But we had a training at work, and we did an ACE training. So we did like it's childhood trauma, and they ask you like, was there any ever violence in the household? Was one of your parents locked up when you were a kid, right? And like all these different things where yeah. And it gives me chills because I never really realized, this until this moment. Like I think I was a 9 out of 10. I wasn't a 10 out of 10, but I was a 9 out of 10. I forgot what one I missed, but it just kind of like, and I looked around the room and I seen that nobody else was a 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it kind of puts things into perspective, like the things that we survived and overcame. Absolutely. And to be where we're at, right? And then we wonder why we're so fucked up in the head. Well, in our development, time of our brains, right? Like we experience all these things, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, I think the only thing was I didn't see anybody, like I didn't see my mom and dad because my mom was never in a relationship. So I never seen her like get hit by another man or her put hands on another man or anything like that. So
I think coming to terms with that experience, and these questions are all under the age of 18. So it's kind of your key development phases, right? Yeah. You're a young person developing your brain, your emotional, all of your key parts of yourself are growing and developing. And for me, it kind of gave me permission to heal. I struggle with perfectionist too sometimes. Like I want to be this and that, but sometimes just remembering, hey, I'm a 10 out of 10. So let's gauge myself from there and see how far I've come. It's kind of helpful. I kind of want to flip the script. I don't like to like victimize myself or, I did for a long time. So it's important to me to look at that as I'm a 10 out of 10 and I'm doing a lot with that 10.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I get to rewrite the story.
You can help a lot of people with that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've whether I directly or indirectly knew it or subconsciously didn't, like all my work has been searching for ways to bring other people out of the same circumstances that I was in. Yeah. And it didn't dawn on me, I think, till this time getting clean that I realized like it's really important for me to put my pain into purpose. Yeah. I want to alchemize my experiences. I want to take all these ingredients of these traumas that I've been through and turn it into something hopeful, something powerful, something that makes me feel like those things did not happen to me in vain. And that's like at the core of me. And I've been doing that since I was a little girl. I think it's my first way of escaping, like when people ask me, when did you start first using? I was like, probably like 5 years old. I would go in the closet, turn on the little flashlight and start reading a book to check out, I wanted to escape, and for me, escapism is a way of using, how do we escape the feelings and the emotions and the experiences? And so since very early on, like I learned that if I wanted to, I could really check out of where I'm at right now. Yeah. And so, I'm grateful that all the books I read, they had these like heroine in them, they had these like underdogs and I just love those stories. I love hearing an underdog, change the narrative, come out on top, and not necessarily on top like they're better than anyone, but just that they didn't let their circumstances define the rest of their life.
Right.
So I was a very romantic kid for sure.
Yeah.
But that's what's helped me find recovery, I think. Believing in something like that, when the door finally opened and it presented itself, it was like, oh, that's probably for me,
Yeah. So you had both parents?
So my biological father was taken to prison when I was like 3 or 4. I didn't actually see him again until I was 13, and it was very brief.
Yeah.
My mom did eventually get remarried, and so I have a dad that I call my dad today that raised me and is still present in my life.
Did that change the dynamic in the household when she remarried? Was it?
Absolutely.
Was it a lot
So
more healthy?
that particular change in our life, brought us to church. So I grew up very religious. We were involved in the church, but I was also, molested in the church. So, sorry, sensitive topics for some people. But I had some really positive experiences with going to church. Like I was on the church choir. I was in the all the youth groups and things like that. So some core principles developed in me through there. Like I wanted to be like Jesus. I wanted to be everybody's friend. I wanted to bring kindness and love and joy in the world. But then I also had these other experiences happen in the church. So the institution of church, really took a hit, and so I began to question, the religious side of faith. And so it's been a journey to come to where I'm at now at 46, 47 years old, trying to figure out what my God looks like. As you guys know, like my 12-step program, we come to believe in a higher power that we create and define. And so I'm grateful for the freedom of that in our program, because I can tell you right now, like when my first sponsor was working with me on my steps, I hated the word faith. Like, fuck that. Don't use that word with me. I love hope, because hope takes religion out of it. I don't know. I feel like with the word hope, if we can hope in something, if we can believe in something, it's the same thing as faith, but for a long time, faith was just such a dirty word to me. That and trust,
Yeah.
So.
Do you have any siblings?
I'm the oldest of 5. So I have a sister who's 11 months younger than me, and then I have 2 more sisters and a brother. So yeah, I'm the oldest. My mom was in childcare growing up. She did that from home. So I was kind of like a young parent. I think with the way that we grew up and back then and that time, and you're talking like, 20, 30 years ago, I had a lot of responsibilities. I was a little adult. At 12 years old, I was helping my mom take care of like 10 daycare kids, set up their lunches. I did home studies to help her. And so I grew up really fast, very, very fast. And then, a lot of things happened to me when I was 13. I was assaulted, and, I kept that to myself. So I just feel like I grew up really quick.
Yeah.
And tried to escape it, as often as I could. I remember my first time getting loaded, my first time getting high. People ask, like, did you start with drugs? Did you start with alcohol? Did you start with weed? My first drug was a line in the bathroom at Jim's Burgers. I was 15 years old, and I was crying, and this girl was like, do you want to stop crying? And I'm like, of course I want to stop crying, And so she took me into the bathroom and gave me the smallest line you could ever make, and it was done. I did that every day for 8 years.
Wow.
And that was a line of what?
Of meth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, of pink crystal meth, Sorry, I hope I don't trigger anybody, but, that's how my story started. And it was like giving me a book one more time and putting me in the closet and allowing me to escape, and it's not like I wanted to do drugs. I wanted to escape. I wanted to feel numb. I wanted to not feel the emotions. I wanted not to deal with life. I wanted to not be where I was at. And that allowed me to be where I was, but also disconnected, detached, and void of the emotions that I was supposed to be feeling. So, yeah.
And you not shared any of your trauma with anybody at that point?
So at that point, no. I think my family didn't really find out about. Well, when I was in church and the deacon had did that to me and my sister, we did share about that. We stopped going to the church. Back then, to credit my family and stuff, things weren't socially discussed or pursued in the same way that they are today, right? Like today,
especially in the church,
right? We have a very different way of doing things now, and I think the generation underneath me that they speak about feelings, they speak about emotions. We target predators. We make sure to out them. We make sure to pursue legal stuff. There's groups and support groups. Back then it was kind of like hush hush,
Right.
And so it didn't get really addressed. It just we got removed and we stopped going there. But fast forward to when I was 13, no, I didn't share that. It was a family member, and he was a well-liked family member. He was adored by everyone. And so I didn't share that. And when I did, it wasn't received very well either.
Right.
So yeah, it just justified more using for me. It was kind of like my permission slip to harm myself, you know. I felt like, I was like, fuck it, nobody believes me, you know.
Yeah.
And for a long time, all of the traumas that I experienced were the reason why I continue to use. It made me feel like, you know, all these things have happened to me, so I have a right. You know, my mom threw me out when I was like 15 and a half, 16. So I was homeless. I was sleeping in the park at Upland Memorial, you know, sleeping at San Antonio Community Hospital, you know, hanging out at the tweaker pad, you know. That was my junior and senior year of high school. So while people were going to school and graduating and finishing, you know, I'm like looking for the next bag and, you know, going to Del Taco to get free food. And I don't share that with everyone, and a lot of my family maybe knows about it, but they've never heard that.
Was that park like it is today then too? Like where you could go there and pick up?
So the park,
Memorial Park?
So Upland Memorial Park was where I would crash, like if all of my spots were busted, you know, because, you know, you could tweak with people for a while and they're like, hey, no, not tonight. I got people coming or whatever. So when I would get kicked out from there, that's where I would sleep. Or I'd go to the maternity ward hospital right there, San Antonio, and I'd go hide in their bathrooms. Or I'd fake it like I was waiting to see somebody and sit in the benches and stuff. But there was an actual, and they're not there anymore, but there's this corner house that transitions from San Antonio, that street. It was such a tweaker pad. And like everybody would crash there. There was like a garage.
There's another one not far from there though.
Yeah. So, and I won't mention their names, but like I went there for years, you know, and then I eventually got me a little Honda Civic, like a 2-door, and I slept in that on their driveway. And then there's like a little abandoned house and I'd sleep there, you know, and then I had a friend who was a plumber and he'd work on certain locations and he'd let me stay in an industrial building, you know, and he'd put like a cot in there for me. So, I mean, I was very resourceful for a young girl, but, you know, high on meth and warming up a cup of noodles with cold water and eating that.
Was it the using that led to you being kicked out? Or
you know, I'm sure my mom or my family would have a different. I'm sure drug use probably played a huge role in us being able to get along. And back then, you know, to their defense, you know, we didn't know about rehab. You know, there wasn't shows like Dr. Drew and like all of these, you know, public acknowledgments of substance abuse being an issue, right? And I remember a fight where she was like, "You're on drugs. I know it. You're on that shit. I'm gonna call the police." And I'm like, "Do it." Because I was dying inside. Like, I had no idea. It was my first drug I ever tried, and I was absolutely hooked. And I couldn't stop, and I was using every freaking day. You know, it was like, I didn't even know what I was doing. I needed help, you know? And I think, you know, shame, you know, the Hispanic culture, the pride, you know, not wanting to recognize that your child's on drugs, things like that. You know, now that I work with kids in foster care and I work with social workers and things like that in my job, I'm like, why didn't anybody call social services on me? Why wasn't there a CPS case for me? I was missing for so many years, you know? And that's just not my story, you know? But I'm grateful for the programs that they have today for kids like me back then. And I'm grateful for the awareness that parents today have, you know? Like, they have to take responsibility in supporting their children if they're struggling. Right. You know, there's actually things that keep people accountable. But that wasn't the case back then. So, you know, to my mom's defense, to my family's defense, you know, she was an orphan. You know, she wasn't raised by her parents. You know, she was an orphan at 9. And to her defense and to the step work that helped me understand that she did the best she could from the place that she was at, right? Because if you would have asked me this before recovery and working my steps, I resented her. Yep. You know, every time I did a line, I'm like, fuck you, Mom, you know, because I was so angry and so hurt and this sense of abandonment and like this desperate cry for help that wasn't available to me and this isolation that I experienced. I remember walking up and down, is it San Antonio right there, or Arrow, you know, where you see all those little houses, and they have really cute little houses on that street, you know, and it's like the sun's going down and you see like the lights come on in the windows and people are sitting down and have dinner, and like just the feeling of like, this is why I have such a sensitive spot for homeless people, because, you know, nobody wants to be walking the streets, sitting there looking at everyone moving about their life, you know, getting up, be out in the street, watching people wake up and get ready to go to work, or I'd see people sit down for dinner, or I see them start decorating for Christmas. Oh shit, it's Christmas time. I didn't know because I was disconnected, you know.
I had that experience, like I would have moments like that on the freeway on a weekday at 6 a.m, and I've been up all night and I'm caught in traffic because the rest of the world is going to work. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm coming back from whatever I was doing all night, right?
Yeah.
Burnt out, and I'm caught in traffic and just looking at all these people drinking their coffee and on their way to work. With
the routine. Didn't you envy the routine?
And then the same experience on the court bus in the county jail. And you're on the way to court at 5 a.m, and all these people are just doing their life, and I'm in shackles on a bus.
I don't think anybody could properly describe how you feel about yourself when you know you don't belong to that community or that population. Like, I'm not like that. I don't have that. I'm not capable of that, or I'm not deserving of that. You know, I don't think anybody decides to not be able to put together something like that. You know, I remember being at Del Taco one day and just standing outside there, and I didn't want to go up to the window again and ask the girl for food. And she saw me, and I would like kind of turn because I was embarrassed still. I mean, even at that young age, I was very self-conscious. And she's like, come on, I know you. And I was so angry at her. Like, how dare you assume that I wanted food? And I did. You know, like nobody wants that. Nobody woke up and said, hey, I want to beg for food and I want to feel disconnected from society and people and family and love and things like that. Just because I'm chasing this, you know, this drug of choice of mine, you know. It was some of the most spiritually broken times of my life, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, and then I didn't have a daughter. I wasn't, you know, I was by myself. I'm grateful that I got pregnant when I did because she gave me purpose. You know, I know that kids aren't a reason to get clean, but she gave me a reason to live because I wasn't courageous, you know, in the sense that I would, you know, try to unalive myself. I was just, you know, slowly trying to end myself, you know. And
one bag at a time.
Yeah, one bag at a time, and you know, feeling like I was slowly disappearing to the rest of the world. And those moments made me feel like that.
Yeah,
like wholeheartedly made me feel like that. You know, especially seeing people sit down at dinner, that would kill me. I was just like, and then I'm like putting tap water into a cup of noodles and just letting it sit till the noodles get soft enough so that you can crunch on them. But it was never hot; it was always cold. You know.
Yeah.
And those only cost 25 cents back then, or 10 cents, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
It was 10. I don't know. It's getting older, but it was it was next to free, you know. So, yeah, that was my young years of using and my homelessness, and I found recovery. Actually went to Prototypes Women's Center in Pomona, and it
was that after you had your daughter?
Yeah, it actually was. You know, I like to say that I got clean when my daughter was born, but I stayed clean for the pregnancy. I stayed clean for a short period of time.
There or out on your own?
No, not through there. So I got pregnant at 18 and a half or 18. I had her right before I was 19. And I was getting loaded up until I got pregnant for sure. And I was out in like Monterey Park, the LA County area. And I came home for my pregnancy, you know, and I had such a resentful relationship with my mom that it took everything in me to even ask to come back home, right? But I had to do what I had to do. And, you know, I felt like my pregnancy was worth it. Like, I don't care what it feels like, I'm going to do it. So I got a little job and I started pursuing programs to see where I could live with her. So I wanted to start fresh. Yeah. And I found a program called Las Madrinas, which was like a little apartment complex where they gave discounted rent and they helped girls get into college. And like I said, I was always chasing hope because, you know, I read so many books and so many fantasy stories and so many like, I don't know, underdog themed type of thing. And I just wanted that to be me. I wanted to know that no matter what happened to me, I was going to come out on top. And now I had this baby that I had to prove something to, you know? And so I got into this program and I ended up getting a little part-time job, enrolling in East LA College over there off of Julio Cesar Chavez. And, you know, I started putting together a life that was a little more normal. And I wasn't using for a little while, but you know, the disease doesn't discriminate against where you're at in life. For me, it just took getting some uncomfortable emotions, and it's like, oh, this is getting gross. Let's figure out a way. And all it took was this one girl moving into the program who was a freaking tweaker, you know, and we know our people. And so one day I was in a fight with a boyfriend at the time, and she's like, girl, come over and have a drink with me. And I didn't like to drink, so I went over there just to hang out and try to, like, you know, act like I didn't care about the breakup, you know. And she was like, do you do the shit, you know, do you party? And I'm like, and it had been like a year and a half now, you know, my daughter was like 6 months old, and that was it. That was all it took, you know. And you just, one is too many, 1,000's never enough for me. That's, you know, we were talking earlier, and it's like, I don't do things in small doses. I've never used any substance, just a little bit. It's like you give me one and everybody might take the break and I'm still running and looking for another place. And I might get loaded with you, but then I'm looking for a backup to make sure that I'm loaded when I'm leaving and when I'm en route to the next place we're going to be, you know, because once you give me some way to turn this off, like, I want it to stay off. You know, I'm a Cancer. Like, I feel deeply, and you know, I've come to terms with the fact that my superpower is that I'm super sensitive. I'm emotional. I feel everything, but that's also my complete fucking weakness. You know, like, I feel everything times 10, and so naturally, I want to chase whatever can help me turn it off. You know, and so I was up and running. It wasn't long after that you know, the power was out, and I was running an electric cord to the neighbor's house to get my electricity on. You know, and then the eviction, and you know, back to that homeless status again. And to be fair, you know, Homeless looked different this time with the kid because I had a car. And I mean, I'm missing some steps in there, but we were back on the street living with friends, couch surfing. I would stay at my mom's house a couple times here and there, or I'd leave her there. But then I found myself back on that block, going to visit people and back in the area again. And I think what really happened for me was I had a Connect boyfriend, right? So he sold, and so it was convenient, and he would always make sure that we got hotels and stuff like that. And so we'd stay in hotels for a long time. So my homelessness, that chapter was a lot of hotels on Foothill Boulevard, right? And eventually he got arrested, and I'm grateful for that. Because, I didn't have any dope and I didn't have any place to stay. And so the homeless got real again. And because I had my daughter with me, I had to swallow my pride and ask for my mom's help and have her, watch her for a couple weeks and I didn't want that for her. Now I had somebody that I loved more than I loved myself, because obviously I didn't love myself yet. And so I started calling around for programs. And I remember having to call for 2 weeks straight every day. You know how they make you check in?
Yeah.
Like if you call the START hotline now, you have to call for your bed. Well, they didn't have that back then because this was like 20 years ago. But I called every day for 2 weeks.
You called the place then?
I called Prototypes for 2 weeks straight, and I talked to this lady named Angel at a 1-800 number and a payphone, because I didn't even have a cell phone. So I was calling from the payphone every day for a fucking bed. And it was a Women's with Children program. So, I survived that, and I got in, and I did a year there. I graduated. I transitioned to their housing program.
Yeah, they'll set you up at that one, right?
Yeah, back then it was, treatment has changed, with funding and everything like that. They're shorter, but that was a year-long program. I think I was there for 14 months, actually. And they did job readiness. I had therapy on site. I had the safe coping skills where I got to tackle some of my trauma and find out that, I have a lot of oh my God, I use drugs for a reason, things like that. And they helped me with childcare. They helped me. I did therapy with my daughter because I didn't know how to play. I didn't know how to be a mom. I didn't know how to take care of her. I was 20 years old, and it's not that I didn't grow up in a home that was fairly decent. It was just I had become so disconnected from society and standard operating procedures. I was couch surfing and moving around so much and using drugs on a regular basis. You forget the essentials, So that program really, really reset all the factory settings in me, and helped me build some stability and get me into a program and get me into housing. And I got a job.
When did you go to your first meeting?
My first meeting was there. So they have outside, they have people that can come pick you up, and you can get like a day pass. So I remember one of my friends, Kim, came and picked me up for a meeting and took me to a meeting in Pomona. And I fell in love instantly. We talked about it earlier. Like, I wanted a sense of belonging. Right. This was me getting inside the window where I saw people eating dinner. Right. Going inside and sitting in a meeting and talking to people who didn't think you were crazy because you did drugs or had trauma, or, talking shit about what they came from. I loved it. I soaked it up right away. And I became connected to the space. I like to say that I did do Narcotics Anonymous when I was 20 years old. I did find our program, but I didn't do what we were supposed to do in our program. I took the benefits and didn't do any of the work.
Yeah.
And that's so important to my story because of the program, because of that treatment center, I was able to get a job, get an apartment, get my daughter in a safe place, eventually get married, start building a really quality-driven life. But you can build whatever you want, but you will tear it down if you don't figure out why you destruct, or why you self-sabotage. And while that program taught me so many things about what was possible, I don't truly believe that I thought or understood the disease of addiction.
Right.
I think I was working off of the victim mentality still, and I thought I had a permission slip to act that way, and I blamed everybody. Even at that time, it was like, well, all this shit fucking happened to me. That's why I'm here. That's why I got to do this. That's why I even picked up meth, and I'm not doing meth anymore. And so, I had a real indifferent attitude towards the people in the meeting at some point. Eventually when I got married and I was a football mom, well, I was a cheerleader mom, but my husband at the time was a football coach. So I was like, at practice, and like I had a job, and, I worked at a really great organization, the ego got really inflated. Right. And so when I would sit in meetings that I had been going to for about 5 years, like I started to look at people differently. Like, oh, I got a job now. They're still talking about being employed. They're still on welfare. Well, I didn't go to prison. So, you start to look for all the differences. Yeah. And I heard people talking about alcohol. I heard people talking about relapse, and I wasn't fucking paying attention. At that point in my life, just before I got married, I was just doing conventions, going to all the fun stuff, going to the beach events. I was socializing in Narcotics Anonymous. I was in some days I felt like I was attending just to feel good about myself, right? Like if you're in a class and you're like, there's D students and there's A students, I was the A student. Because if you had a checklist right now, like I'm clean, I got a job, I got my own place, and you're new and you're just coming in. And it sucks, but that's true. Like, humility is important to this program. Like I was one decision away from getting fucking loaded again. And I absolutely did, you know, and I didn't make the connections that I was supposed to, right? I didn't get close to people. I didn't, I had a sponsor, but I didn't do the steps. I had a lot of trust issues because I didn't do the work. I didn't look at why I didn't trust people. And so
that lasted 5 years?
So I stayed in recovery, like actually attending meetings and doing all that for about 5 years. Somewhere off of that, I veered off because I remember going to the World Convention in 2005, and I think I had like 4 years. And so shortly thereafter, I started to disconnect. Life got busy, and this is what I want to say because today's Just for Today was about complacency. So I got complacent in my recovery. Like life took priority. Like all the things I built because of the program became priority over the program. Yeah. And so I gave it all back. But yeah, I ended up just going and doing regular life and not doing meetings, not talking to people, losing numbers, right? And I stayed clean like that without going to meetings for a little while. But here's what happened. I was married at the time, and in 2009, my husband had a psychotic break. And, I had built this life, right? Like I was a homeless youth. So getting married, having the house, getting the job, and I got pregnant and I had this 6 weeks old baby. And I thought like I was living the dream. We were at church. We were teaching the daisies. He was teaching the Rangers. On paper, it was like the checklist was complete. Yeah. Like I'm cured. Like I built this life. This is what everybody goes for, right? And then just like that, he had a psychotic break. And from one day to the next, like my best friend, my husband, this perfect little life was destroyed. And once again, I'm forced with dealing with feelings that I don't know how to process. And, as any addict, right, like, this is gross. Like, I don't want to deal with this. And so it didn't happen in that moment because I was dealing with the chaos of everything. But like a couple months later, my friend was like, girl, you need a break. You deserve a break. Everything that's going on, let's go to happy hour. And so I started drinking, and it's so funny because how many meetings did I sit in where they said alcohol is a drug, period? Yeah. And how many times did people tell me, like, it doesn't matter what drug you use, right? At this point in my journey, I genuinely thought I had a meth problem.
Yep. Yeah.
And those of us who've been in the program and those who've dealt with multiple different uses of drugs, or those of us who have actually, become in acceptance that we have a disease, I wasn't, and I didn't. And I genuinely thought, like, I gave up meth. There's no way I'm ever doing that again. So I started drinking like it wasn't an issue. Yeah. And it didn't happen overnight. But man, eventually cocaine led to, the alcohol led to cocaine. It was like, oh, well, you can't drive, you need a bump. Yeah. And I not to get into the dirt too much, but like, I remember taking a 401k loan for $12,000 trying to get out of debt because guess what? I wasn't paying my bills and I wasn't being responsible. And while I didn't get homeless this time, like my life was real freaking unmanageable, and my pain was out of control. And so the maintenance to keep that at bay was crazy, trying to drink from one night to the next night. And then, like Taco Tuesday. Oh, it's Thirsty Thursday. Oh, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I think I was going out to drink just to have the excuse to get a bag. Because, I psychologically hadn't accepted that, you're back in it, girl. Like, stop lying to yourself. Yeah. Denial's a real thing. And so, somewhere in 2019, my life was just so fucked up. And on Facebook, if you would have been on my page, you saw selfies of me looking like I was killing it. I was in the gym. I was traveling the world. I went to Fiji. It looked like I was living a good life. But that was the devastating part about that time of my life because I felt invisible. Kind of like walking that street where I'm looking in. Mm-hmm. Except I'm in the house, but nobody knows that. Like, I'm, like imagine, having the facade of the life that everybody wanted, right? Like I remember people commenting on my posts and saying things like, must be nice, girl. Like, oh my God, I look up to you. You inspire me. And I'm just like, if you only fucking knew how dead and empty I feel inside, how invisible I feel, the pain I'm experiencing and the inability to cope and the inability to stop these feelings. Like I'm doing so much drugs every day and I'm posting selfies that nobody can tell. And maybe some people could, but they never had, they never said anything to me. I think the reason why I even got clean this time around was because my sister had the courage to ask. And if anyone's listening out there, like, I would just like to say this because this really did save my life. Like, sometimes we get uncomfortable asking people like, hey man, are you okay?
Yeah.
Are you on drugs? Especially those of us in recovery and we think somebody's relapsed.
Yeah.
Ask the fucking question. Because she called me out, and if she hadn't called me out, I don't know where I would be right now. I really don't know where, because people were whispering about me already. I could feel that.
Yeah.
But nobody actually put it in my face. And I think knowing that someone loved me enough and cared enough to come and fucking ask me gave me just what I needed to go ask for help, you know? And, you know, it's a disease. Like if you saw somebody, you know, diabetic, you know, having a diabetic, what is it called? A crash? Like if you'd go grab them a cup of orange juice, you'd ask them if they need to see a doctor, you know?
Yeah.
We could do the same thing with our people, you know? We could do the same thing with our friends who struggle with addiction. And that just genuinely put me back on a path to ask for help. I remember, I had Kaiser insurance, because, you know, I always tell everybody I'm a bougie addict at this point. You know, I have the house, I have the car, I'm going on trips. And I went to the doctor and I was like, I need help. You know, I'm using again and I've relapsed. I used to be in recovery and I'm here now. And I was like, can you put me in a treatment center? You know, I wanted to go back to prototypes, you know, and here I am, this older woman with a kid and in this life. And she's like, well, we don't do rehab. I mean, we don't do like treatment for cocaine. Like you can't detox from that. And I was so insulted and devastated. Like, did I need a harder drug? Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And so she offered me outpatient.
The one over there by the hospital?
Yeah, off of
Flower?
Sierra. No, it's Sierra and Foothill. There was an outpatient program there.
Right behind the hospital? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what the street's called.
The Flower.
Is it Flower?
I think so.
So she tells me there's no, like, because I wanted a detox. I thought I needed to like be locked up for 2 weeks and just get me off the street, get me from getting in my car and going to the Connect at night, you know? I would go when everybody would be asleep, or I'd go on my lunch hour, or I'd go in the morning before work, like round the clock, picking up, you know? My habit had gotten so incredibly, ridiculously out of control. I would probably say like
You still drinking, or was it all using?
So it was mostly using, right? Because once I decided and I accepted that I'm back on the powder, like I didn't really need the alcohol.
Yeah.
But the alcohol was the gateway that made me feel like, well, I was only doing it because of this. You know, once that was gone, it was like, why am I wasting money on alcohol?
Yeah.
Because, you know, I could get another bag. So that, you know, and then once I had a direct relationship with the Connect and not going to the bar to get the Connect there, you know, like, I mean, you know the shit we do, like these little decisions you make that take you closer to the place you actually really, really want to get to, you know? And
It's like driving by the dope spot just to show them how good you're doing.
Exactly. The next time you stop and say hi, to really let them know that you're good, right? Yeah, no, I did that. And so she said that there was no detox for cocaine. And I'm like, are you serious? You know, what, do I need to be a heroin addict? Like, do I need to be slamming it? Like, what, you know? I was devastated, but she did offer me day treatment. And this was like the January, February of 2020. So as you guys know, that's when COVID was around or starting. And so I was doing therapy and I was like still using. And I finally said, okay, let's do it, you know? And so she signed me up. I went on disability at work because, you know, work became unmanageable. And I think it was March like 8th or 9th or whatever, I started, and I got that first day, and it was that same thing like when I went to a meeting. I sat in a circle like this table like this, and, you know, everybody's checking, and they had you check in from 1 to 10 where you're at, and I was like a 1, and I fucking just broke down. But it wasn't an NA meeting, but it was a group of addicts, right? Yep. Coming together in this treatment program, and all of a sudden I just felt at home again. And like, you know, just the masks just fell off, you know, like I'm a 1, you know, and everybody's like, I'm 5, I'm doing it. I'm just like sitting there, like I felt like a wet mop, just sitting there, like so destroyed and humiliated and ashamed that I had come all this way and just to come back to this 1. And I don't know what it was about the 1 to 10 check-in that I was the 1. It really hurt my spirit, you know, but it was essential to my surrender, I feel like. And so I started this program, and I was, you know, I think Wednesday that week was the last day that I flushed a bag in the bathroom that they had there. Yeah.
I've used in that bathroom.
Have you? Yeah. I did too. Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday I flushed. You know, because it was 2 days of like I can do this. It wasn't like I could do it for long term, but I felt like I wanted to.
The girl I was with at the time was in her class. I got there early to pick her up.
Yep.
And there was like security in the parking lot. So I was like, I got to use the bathroom. And I go use in that bathroom right there in the lobby. So
it's really funny because right around that time, I was doing the payday advance places because I was on disability because I took off from work to try to get well. And I had like this payday advance place, and I had 3 of them that I would rotate. So I'd pay one off, then get another one from this one, and then come to that one and get it, and then rotate them. And I didn't pay the car. Like I took out this 401k loan, I think at the end of 2019 to try to pay off my car that was behind on my payments. Obviously that did not happen. The car got repoed. So I was in a rental car going to treatment. And
those are expensive.
I mean, yes, they are, but for whatever reason, I had like a really good deal on a 2-week contract with them, and I was nearing the end of the contract. There was a bunch of like, I was using in that thing, running amok with that, and so I started treatment, and I want to say that they came and towed the car like the following week after I started treatment. It was just a reflection of how bad I was. I was like using the bathroom at treatment, riding in the rental car with all like the fast food bags and like the crap in the car, and I think that was a Monday. Wednesday, I flushed the bag. Thursday, Friday, I'm like, okay, this can fucking work, man. I'm going to do this. And then Friday,
this whole time you're also parenting.
Yeah. I as best I could, at this time I had like a 9-10-year-old at home, and, yeah. So on Friday, they announced March 11th is my clean date, 2020. So I have 5 years and some change, right? And on Wednesday, March 11th, they declared the national pandemic and everything got shut down. So on Thursday and Friday, Kaiser decided they're going to cancel the program. So that Friday, they tell us in class, like, hey guys, this is going to be our last day. And I'm like, fuck this. I got angry all over again. And the God that I had somewhat developed and kept and held on to after all this time, I was like, fuck him. For real. I fucking did it. I came back. I asked for help. I checked in as a 1 on Monday. Like, I'm here. I flushed my bag on Wednesday. Like, are you fucking serious? Mm-hmm. This stupid lady that fucking put me in this program, I told her I needed, and I'm just all these reasons, like, and, my connect was a germaphobe. So I wasn't really talking to him anymore. And all I could think about was alcohol. I wanted a bottle of Jack. Stater Brothers is across the street at the time. Mm-hmm. And I pulled into the parking lot after I left there. And I left out of there like a bat out of hell. I told the fucking teacher, like, and he was such a sweet guy. Like, I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. This is stupid. How could you guys do this to people? And he's like, I'm so sorry. And it was a new thing, right? Like the pandemic, everything, mm-hmm. Those were all first for all of us as a community. And this poor guy didn't know what the fuck was happening, but I had to blame somebody. I needed to victimize myself in that experience. And I was looking for a reason to use. So I go to the parking lot across the street. And by this time, everybody in the group had kind of exchanged numbers so that we can kind of like try to do meetings together. And I'm sitting in the parking lot and I'm just sitting there crying, like really fucking mad, like thinking like, and he calls me and he's like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm about to buy this bottle of fucking Jack. Cause fuck this. How could they fucking do this to us? And all of these like things that I felt were everybody else's fault, Mm. And I thank God for this moment because this person calls me and he's like, hey, there's an AA meeting in Upland. You want to go? And I'm like, no, fuck it. So they can cancel it too, And he's like, let's just go. He's like, if you want to get a bottle afterwards, I'll take you myself, And so I got to that meeting. And I sat in that meeting and again, another circle of people. I think I just needed someone else. I needed other people so badly because I was in that world of invisibility for so long that if you could offer me a sense of belonging, I would give up the drug. I would give up the drugs. I would just hold me, let me be seen. That was the real thing I wanted. That was the real thing I was chasing. So it wasn't like I was looking to replace something. If you could offer me that, I'd pick that, And so I went there, sat there, and like, again, you see people talking about how they want to stay clean. And like a few of us were there basically venting and sharing about how we didn't know how we were going to stay clean. And this unique thing happened in that moment. Like we fucking pivoted. Right. We pivoted like addicts seeking fucking this opportunity to stay clean, man. Like we rallied together, we showed up, and it just inspired me in that way, like to remember, like there wasn't treatment before. There was just a couple of dope fiends who said they wanted to stop, and they sat together, and somebody shared that in their share and told us the story of how AA led to NA and I think he wanted to remind us, like, you don't need a fucking treatment center. You have a fucking table right here, and you have two people that don't want to get loaded right now. Yeah. And it's just so powerful, like the beginnings of us and the way that we come to have this fellowship, and it didn't matter in that moment, in that time, and in that place in my heart, like whether it was AA, NA, CA, I love my program. I fuck with my program so hard, but guess what? In that moment, AA was right there, and I sat there, and someone reminded me that 2 addicts, 2 alcoholics, whatever you define yourself as, can sit together and try to get through an hour, and we did. And, here I am today because I got through that 1 hour. Yeah. Right. That's my truth. I think somewhere after that, I got an email from the teacher facilitator that I told off, and he's like, hey, I've been thinking about you all day. He's like, and they're going to try to do this new thing called Zoom. Yeah. For meetings. He's like, please don't give up. And this little girl inside me just really wanted someone to say, like, please don't give up. I love my story, and I needed to be loved and cared for like that. I have a lot of abandonment issues because of my story. I have a lot of sense of feeling forgotten about. I have a lot of feelings and emotions that tell me that nobody cares about me, right? Like when I'm in my head. And so just this random person that I had only spent time with for a week telling me like, I'm thinking about you and I want you to not give up. Like I needed that. And I'm grateful for that. So he sends me these links and I'm like, okay, well, I'll give it a try, you know?
Yeah.
Also, I want to shout out St. Luke's. That was like the rogue meeting. So, you know, everybody was supposed to shut down, but St. Luke's didn't.
Fuck yeah.
They had a fucking meeting every day at
Like
noon.
the fucking power.
And kept my fucking ass in that seat. You know, that saved my life. Like, you know, I love that they were defiant. I really do, you know. And then I love that some part of our program was innovative and decided to do Zoom. Like the diversity of our fellowship, the diversity of all these addicts trying to figure out ways to stay clean. Like that was inspiring and powerful. And staying clean during the pandemic, like getting clean during the pandemic, like bro, like that's what I did, and I did it because of other people who cared enough to do something to help someone like me, you know, and yeah.
Yeah, I had multiple years clean when the whole world shut down, and that shit was rough for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you were on social media, you saw people getting drunk on their stories, and like people were relapsing, and
a lot of people. Everything changed after that.
Still loaded.
Yeah.
Were you?
Yeah, Mike was coming
I
up.
was taking full advantage.
Mike was coming up, dude. Yeah, and I was trying to fucking just sit on my hands as much as I could, and it was such a rough fucking time, but yeah, and like you said,
it was perfectly okay to go into all stores with a mask on.
Yeah. Maximize
It's
that
actually
to the fullest.
required.
So I'm doing this.
Nobody knows who I am. Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
honestly.
for me, right before the pandemic hit, I was working 4 jobs. So I was working at a nonprofit organization. I was working a bartending gig. I was working a private bartending event. And I was busy. Like if you could have asked me how I was trying to outrun myself, it was like by constantly staying sedated on drugs and alcohol and constantly moving and not standing still. For me, and I empathize with everyone that, you know, lost someone during that time, but I really, really feel like my ass was saved during the pandemic. And I feel like my higher power, you know, it genuinely feels like the world shut down for me because that was the only way. That was the only way. And, you know, maybe that's the romantic in me, you know, trying to write the story for myself, but I don't care. Like, that's my truth. Like, I had to sit on that bed. There was nowhere to go. There was no bars to go hang out at. You know, my connect was super germophobic. So I was like, just put it under the mat, bro. Like, I'm not even going to see you. And he's like, no, but your money. Just like, I'll sell you, you know. He was just not trying to see people, so he wasn't picking up and stuff like that. And, you know, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for that experience. Not that, you know, I'm not empathetic to what happened for other people during that time, but you know,
nor do we want it to happen again.
But my gift of desperation is losing all my jobs. You know, not being able to get to the Connect's house, not having enough money to pay off a car, you know, not being able to get to the places I would have been able to continue using. It took that level of shutdown for me to be able to really embrace the opportunity to heal and to get to know the program, to get into therapy, to work a step, to be on Zooms all fucking day, man. I was on the Zooms at 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 12 noon, 5 p.m., and then they had a 7, and then they had a Midnight Raw meeting. Shout out to the Midnight Raw group.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So I met a lot of people that way.
On there a few
yeah.
times.
Yeah. And, you know, I chased that shit like I did my dope.
That was
like I was obsessed.
One, right?
Yep. They had the EIE, the IEFA, and then they had the Midnight Raw. Yeah. I remember going to ones in other areas, the Hollywood meetings. Like, you know, you basically got to travel the world. I remember speaking when I did finally get a year clean, speaking in the Netherlands and like other countries, you know? Yeah. So it was kind of cool, you know? And, you know, for an addict who needs to obsess about something, right? Like, it was a way to obsess. You know, I was able to replace, you know, the chasing and the, you know, the pursuing more with like different meetings, you know, and it bought me the time I needed until the meetings opened up again, and I can get in a meeting and get the appropriate hugs and stuff like that, you know, to get clean and work a program. But I met my first, I changed sponsors a couple times, but I'm grateful for each one of them. They each played a role in my life, for sure.
I feel like during that time, I started getting like resentful at people because I would go on a Zoom. I'm like, dude, I haven't seen you in a meeting in fucking 5 years, and now it's all convenient for your ass, and you're going to fucking get on Zoom. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah, like
that's just me being judgmental. You know?
No, because some party is like, I want to see you, and you're hiding out on Zoom.
Just
get your ass to a meeting. You know? No,
Yeah.
I mean, I think Zoom's great for when you can't get there.
I think that whatever fucking works for you is great, dude. Like
Yeah.
I know people that still go on Zoom and they go to, like I have a buddy who goes to a meeting in like Scotland or some shit like that, bro. So I think all that stuff has
Yeah.
a place for, just because something doesn't work for me doesn't mean that it's good for, because even during that time, like I was rarely on Zooms, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Even when I was doing nothing.
No, a
with
lot
my
of people
life.
rejected Zoom. They were irritated by it.
Yeah,
And
I
I always
wasn't.
share about it because I want people to know, like, where you didn't like it, I'm standing right here in front of your face.
I
Like,
even made a video that a lot of people shared, dude. I fucking did like a screen recording, and so on the phone I had, I can't do it on this on the iPhone, but on the phone I had, you could screen record and record your voice. You know what I'm saying? And so I would like show people, like I did like a little tutorial video of like showing my screen while I'm sharing. Then you go on here, and then you click this, and then click that, and then copy this, and then paste it over here. And I was like, well, I can't push it because if I push like join Zoom, then it's gonna shut down everything. But like and I had like this little video that I posted, and then people started like resharing it so that other people could
learn how to use Zoom. That's
to learn
beautiful.
how to
Like,
use-
that's a life-saving tool.
yeah. It was. I mean, that was That was definitely different. I feel like it catapulted a lot of, not just. It catapulted so many different industries. You know what I'm saying? In
Absolutely.
so many different places.
People do
where,
business
like,
that way now.
Yeah.
That's what that is right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This thing is running every day.
So I went to the 2005 convention. You know how they do the world check-in?
Mm-hmm.
They did it by a teleconference. It was over the phone.
Yeah.
So, doing the Zoom check-in now, like where you can see the screens of
They have
different
Zoom
countries.
conventions now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
crazy.
Like, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't like change though. We're addicts. Change is scary.
And for me, I think I got clean in the era where people were able to hug, and there's just something, like you said, like everything you said is a common theme for addicts. Like I think it's harder for men to admit, because I know it was for me, but like I just wanted to be hugged. I just wanted to be loved. I just wanted to be told like everything's going to be okay. I just wanted to feel safe for the first time in my life. And that's what meetings are, right? Gina, she's been on the podcast. She was sharing the other night, and she talked about like there's 3 parts of the fellowship, or 3 parts of the program. There's the program, the fellowship, and what else did she say?
The meeting.
And the meeting, like the group. So there's the group, the fellowship, right? The group is where we meet. The fellowship is after, before, and all in between. And then the program is the work that we do on ourselves. And they're all super important components. You know what I'm saying? And you take away one of those, or if you only have 2 of those, it kind of throws everything off. Like I was even talking to someone last night. I was talking to my fiance, and I was telling her like the dynamics of like friendship. Like I even tell my clients this too. Like look at, just because like we're all in recovery, that doesn't mean that's all we talk about. Like if all I talked about was recovery, the solution, like I would want to shoot myself, bro. Like that's a horrible, like every day
You're
just
limiting
trying
yourself.
to come on. I was like, bro, me and my boys, we talk shit to each other. We're inappropriate. We have fucking dark humor. Like that's a part of a relationship, right? And like I was talking to her about this old friend that I had, right? Who and you guys maybe he was around. I'm sure he was, but like all we had was a joking relationship. That's the only aspect of our relationship, right? It was just joking. That's all we did was talk shit to each other. And for a long time, I stayed his friend because he was comfortable for me. Like if I had him with me, right, at a meeting, if I had him with me at an event, I didn't have to get to know Mike. I didn't have to get to know Juan. I didn't have to like broaden my circle, because I always had this guy, right? And
He was like your buffer.
oh shit, I know that. Yeah. And that does, like, it did me a disservice, because the only key component that we had in the relationship was hanging out. The fellowship. Like I seen this post where it's like, it's easy to find a companion, right? And that's more of a romantic relationship, but that's also like friendship, right? It's easy to find someone to go to a baseball game with. It's easy to find someone to enjoy a movie with. It's easy to find somebody, right? But like when we're talking about like partnership, when we're talking about like real relationships, there's more than just the hanging out.
Yep.
Right. And if I have a friend, like I have friends now where we just joke around, we talk shit, like we might lean on each other for like small things, right? But then I have these other friendships where it's like we're super good friends. We joke all the time, like me and Mike, you know what I'm saying? Like, but I'll tell you one thing, like when it's time to work, when it's time to like really dive into stuff, me and Mike, we have no problem with that. We could call each other on a joking note, or we could call each other on like
there's depth to your relationship,
there's
or your friendship.
a lot of depth.
A lot of times we do both.
A lot of times we do both. A lot of times we'll do dark humor about the situation that we're in.
Then we'll talk about it
Yeah,
in a serious sense.
Like my whole point of that, right, was like the fellowship is a big part of feeling a part of. It's not the only part, but without that, everything would kind of be just kind of like the same old thing over and over. You know what I'm saying? Like I need to hang out, especially because I got clean when I was young. Where's the dances at? Where, like
you need to socialize.
Henry said, dude, like I wasn't talking to anybody if they weren't cute or this and that, right? Like in early recovery, the women kept me coming back, and there's nothing wrong with that because it saved my life.
It's interesting that you say that because that was me when I was 20 and I did the program, right? I was a young girl. I was looking for like somebody who was going to take care of me. I mean, I wasn't looking for that, but I was looking for validation, I would say. You know, I wanted that. So I chased the fellowship. So what's interesting for me is when the world shut down, right? And we had to go to Zoom, like the component of fellowship wasn't really available. So for me, I got to focus on the component that I missed the first time, which was the message, which was the program. You know, I was in these Zoom meetings where I was listening to speakers share their experience before the pandemic. So they were talking about how they stayed clean, how relapse looked for them, how they got to where they were. So I didn't hear that the first time because I was sitting in meetings thinking I didn't belong and, you know, doing the dances, doing the conventions, doing all the fun stuff and missing the message of our program and missing the other components, you know, like I didn't really, I mean, I had a service commitment when I was clean the first time, but I didn't get into the steps, you know, and in the Zoom meetings, unfortunately, you have to listen to people talk. It's literally just staring at a screen. Like there's no like checking out a guy in the room. There's no like stepping out to go to the bathroom.
You can do that on Zoom.
You can. Okay, yes, you can.
I used to do that. My problem with Zoom, I would end up on like, I would
pin somebody square.
I would put it to the side and I'll just be on Facebook scrolling while the meeting's right here in the corner. You know what I'm saying?
You know, maybe what is it when the student is ready, the teacher appears? Yeah. Maybe that's the point of life I was in. But for me, the Zoom really helped me to just start to listen to what I was actually supposed to be hearing. But yeah, I mean, I guess you could still check people out, but I was so desperate, you know, I had already reached such a low point in my life that I was desperately seeking hope. You know, and so, you know, somebody that I didn't know without like having a backstory to them, someone from another city, someone from, you know, when you get inside a room, you can really judge people, break down their shoes, what kind of car they pulled up in, you know, and you get to know them. So then when they start to speak, you're like, yeah, that motherfucker's lying, right? You know, you get to judgmental, but with Zoom, it was kind of like, I don't fucking know these people. So you really had to take what they said face value, you know, and so I was really starting to be able to hear recovery versus bullshit. And, you know, no messages, you know, you can go to a meeting and hear a good message if you're looking for it, or you can go to a meeting and hear the guy that's talking nonsense, you know. And the good part is that it's important to have both, because some of us walk in and don't know what the fuck we're talking about.
And some of the people you're listening to don't have their video, so you don't know what they look like.
You know, so that helped me.
Zoom meetings too, you can always tell who's not paying attention on the scroll of Facebook. They're like,
that was me, dude. I would turn my camera off, dude.
You know, in the beginning, it was like I was locked in. You know, eventually, I think Zoom got hard for me to focus because I, you know, had outside meetings, and I think for me in person works the maximum. I need the hug, I need the present, I need the eye contact, I need to be in the room, I need to make the active commitment to get in the car, drive somewhere, and commit to that part of my life. You know, and Zoom makes it easy when I can't, so I'm grateful for it still, but at that time, like, it was my lifeline. You know, I met Tina on Zoom, you know, nice. She ended up being my sponsor and helping me through the steps, and her face, you know, with her big blue eyes on the screen, like, she'd probably call me, you know, like, you know, and I did, and I called her, and, you know, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful. Like, this time around, like, I was able to try to connect with a woman. You know, I have freaking serious trust issues, and I thought women were out to get me, you know. I don't know if that stems from my abandonment issues or whatnot, but, you know, I remember calling her, and she was just like, I just don't want you to die. You know, I don't got to be your sponsor or anything, but just call me. And again, it goes back to that sense of like someone caring and wanting to help me and be a part of my life and include me, you know, like hearing, I just don't want you to die was like powerful, right? Super powerful, you know, because I did feel like I was dying, you know. Spiritual death is fucking real. And I remember being homeless as a young person and being without clothes and without food, and the uncomfortability that I felt then didn't compare to the way it felt at this age, you know, and having a house and having a job and having my kids and still feeling broken and empty. You know, that was a deeper level of pain that I don't wish on anyone. So yeah. Today, you know, I get to do that with other girls, you know, and be a sponsor, which I'm really grateful for. I love being a sponsor. I love being sponsored. I love having connections with other women. You know, it's like with anything, they're not perfect, and but they're essential. They're essential to my life today. You know, I I feel like when things get hard or when things get overwhelming or things get unmanageable, you know, the old Monica or the Monica that hasn't worked on her steps or the Monica that hasn't really pursued recovery would be like, okay, how can I escape this situation?
Yeah.
How can I check out? How can I numb this pain? How can I run from this? And today there's like 7 other options before those.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, can I go to a meeting? Can I call
you
my
always
friend?
Run, but there's
Yeah.
a bunch of things that
You get
come
the same
before
shit
that.
though.
Yeah.
You know?
It's always an option though. It's just way down on the bottom of the list.
Yeah. And against my permission too, right? Like I worked a first step with the sponsee a couple weeks ago and it was like I was going through something and she's like, hey, we're still on for Monday. And I'm like in the middle of my own shit, you know, and I'm like, yeah. You know, and here we go. Recovery's in my face, you know, and that's something that's been pre-established and put into place, you know, because I'm following some of the suggestions around here, and it saves your ass when you don't know you're going to need it, because we don't know what we're going to be like in a week. I don't know what drama or shit's going to pop off tomorrow. But because I go to meetings, because I have commitments, because I have these relationships, they show up when I, you know, unannounced, you know, not necessarily unannounced, but like the text message comes in when the text message comes in, the phone call comes through when it comes through. And I'm grateful I say yes before things happen. Like this speaker, I was at a beach event for the lower desert area, was it 2 weeks ago, a week ago? And, you know, man, I was struggling that week. You know, I got a lot of things going on in my personal life, and, you know, the yes happened 2 months ago. You know, and the purpose of that yes happened 2 months later, you know, because now I'm at the beach, I'm connected with my people, I'm sharing my message, and I'm getting to speak about self-honesty. I'm talking myself through the stuff that's going on, and then I get to talk to people afterwards. Like there's the solution, there's the medicine, you know. I love that. So now I do things even when I don't want to, you know, I do them because I know that it may not make sense today, but it's going to make sense tomorrow, you know, and you guys have taught me that, you know, my predecessors have taught me that. Like, we work on recovery now so that when the relapse situations happen, you have that embedded in you, you know. I've caught myself in relapse mode several times over the last 5 years, you know, and it doesn't look like I'm at the bar. It looks like I'm fucking not going to meetings. I'm resentful. Everybody's fucking working against me. Shit's happening to me. Like, nobody loves me. Nobody appreciates me. It's that mentality. Not picking up the phone, you know, and you clock yourself, you know. It's not 2 years anymore now. It's like a couple days, like a couple weeks maybe, you know, at the most. And I want to get that down, you know, smaller and smaller, but it's there, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, I had a few years where like I wasn't doing much of anything, dude. I didn't have sponsees. I was still bare minimum I was doing was going to meetings and having like a decent relationship with my sponsor. But even him, like I would struggle to call him. Like my head would, like I would get in arguments with myself, like, oh, you should call your sponsor. And then the other side of my brain's like, for what? You know what I'm saying? You already know what he's gonna say. And then on my other side would be like, yeah, but it's still a good idea to call him. And I'm like, fuck that, I'm not gonna call him. And
like counseling yourself, huh?
Yeah, I am. I'm fucking having an argument with self because, you know, and there's nothing you talked about. Like for me, like I didn't know how to confide in men because I felt like men were supposed to be tough. And like I had like, for anybody who knows me knows, like I had this real like emotional side of me, and my whole life that has been geared. Maybe no one's ever made me feel that way, but for me in my head, like I was like, if I show people who I really am, if I show people like my true feelings, then people are gonna think I'm weak. People are gonna think I'm a bitch, and like it was.
And nobody's gonna stay.
Yeah, and so I can't show that. So I've always been super aggressive to overcompensate for the sensitive side of me, right? And like now, I mean, I don't associate. Like someone just told me about the Friday man, like, hey, like when are you gonna get a woman to lead? And I was like, oh, you're right. Like I just don't associate with women like that. It's just not part of my thing. And it's not because I'm like, I don't believe men stick with the men and women stick with the women. I don't believe that. I believe that we do recover, right? But I found like my sense of community within men because it's just it's a different demographic. And like my sponsor, he sponsors women and he's able to do that. That's not something that I would do. You know, I've tried it in the past, but I use it as a manipulation and it's never worked for me, you know?
Well, at least you know yourself.
I'm not taking that part out either, dude.
No, you don't gotta take that part out because that's my truth, bro. Like even my sponsor would be like, oh, because in our sponsorship IP, it says that we don't like, we like stray away from that, especially if it leads to like, so a girl, like a cute girl would come up to me and they'd be like, hey, can you sponsor? I'm like, I can't sponsor you. They're like, why not? Like, because I'm attracted to you. You know what I'm saying? Just like this fucking
pull out the IP.
It's funny that you talk about as a man that you feel uncomfortable being vulnerable and you found the community, and so like that's a huge accomplishment. And I think that's why you gravitate so much to that. But it's funny because for me, I'm a super emotional person, and for years, like I would front like I was an emotional person. I would fight every part of myself to like not let people know that I'm like that. You know, I might be comfortable showing that I'm passionate and that I'm sensitive to like the things that were easy to be sensitive about, right? Like, I'm a girl, like, it's okay to cry over something beautiful, like commercials and things like that. People think that's fucking cute. But tell you that I'm insecure or I'm afraid or I feel like you're going to abandon me, like, fuck no. Like, I don't give a fuck. I'm good. And I feel like that comes from the emotional unavailability of some of the experiences I've had. Like, that's my trauma. Like, people who are emotionally unavailable, I chase the one person that's not giving me the emotions I want. You know what I'm saying? And I try to hide myself. So, you know, for me, I think that I felt that way with women. I felt afraid to share my emotional vulnerability with other women because of my issues with my mom and things like that. You know, I was scared to let people know that I wanted their approval or that I wanted them to care for me or that I wanted them to look in on me. I wanted them to know who I was. I didn't want to always have to project this like tough Latina, like, oh, I got this, I'm good, you know, like this hustler. Like, no, I want you to see that I'm fucking a sopping hot mess and I'm scared and I don't know what to do next, you know, and I didn't want to show people that because, you know, I think people gravitated towards Monica, who's fun and social and exciting and like, and I want to see who was going to stay if I did show you that, you know? So when I crossed over, so I see the gratitude you have towards finally getting into that space, right? Like that's how I felt when I finally connected with Tina and other people, letting them know who I was, you know, because that's the community that I felt I couldn't.
And for anybody listening, it's like, because people are like, how do I trust people? You don't have to trust people. You just have to learn to trust one person.
Yep.
That's all it starts off with.
Be careful, but
be careful. Yes. And look it. And I tell clients this all the time. I tell people this all the time, right? Like, we are so quick to be like, I can't trust nobody. Like, but who are you trusting?
Yeah, come on.
Well, when I tell people this, they run off and say this. I said, yeah, but whose fault is that you're telling this person? Right? We have to be careful who we confide in. We have to be careful with who we trust. We have to, like, there's boundaries. There's porous boundaries, rigid boundaries, and then there's healthy boundaries, right? And if we're just I meet someone at a meeting and they got 60 days clean and I'm telling them my whole life story, it's probably not going to end fucking well, right? It's not, right? And so learning that if I tell somebody something and they go off and run their mouth, that's my fault. I should have evaluated the situation and evaluated that relationship before I started running my mouth. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have to take accountability and responsibility for my action. If I can't trust nobody, I have to look at why do I keep putting trust in people that I can't trust.
So I have a different spin on that. Okay. So I respect that and I do agree with that 100%. But I always look at it like this: like, stop playing with yourself. You trusted all kinds of dumb people when you were getting loaded, when you were with the guy that cheated on you 17 times, when you chased that girl that you know was taking your money. Like, we trust people all the time with so much of ourselves. Like, and we do these things to sabotage our life. We do these things to numb our feelings. We do these things to, like, right? So for me, it's like, why the fuck wouldn't you take a chance on trusting somebody to save your life? Like, get real with yourself. And if someone goes out there and tells you dirt, do you not know the meetings we sit in? Do you not know the chaos that happens in our rooms? Like, okay, so someone found out that you're a less than perfect human being. Oh, fucking well. Like, at what point do we hold ourselves hostage to what people might know about ourselves? Like, let somebody find out that I'm not perfect. Okay. That's how much I have to, like, coach myself through that, because my trust was so dependent and contingent on what people think about me, what people might find out about me. And it goes back to, again, like, so you don't want people to know who you are. Yeah. I mean, unless there's some legal stuff, like, please be careful. But for me, it's like, well, they should fucking know I'm not perfect. Because then when people love me, do they love the version I created or do they love who I am? And so the more I'm able to allow people to get to know the vulnerabilities about Monica, the more that people start to love me, especially the women in my life today. Like, they know my dirt. Like, they know the parts of me that I think are disgusting. And I do have parts of me that I think are disgusting. I have done things in my life that I am not fucking proud of. And the more people that I trust with that information about me that can go out there and probably tell, like, what, Channel 7 News wants to know what that girl over there in Fontana's about? Come on. That's a lie our disease creates for us. You know, and gossip comes around and goes. Yes, it's true. But it's on to the next person next week. Trust me. Nobody's that important that they're going to be talking about who you cheated on or who you did this with or who you did that with. We all look for dirt to talk about. But at the end of the day, for me, like, I want people to know who I am. Because when you tell me you love me, I need to know that you love me, not the illusion that I created for you to love. And I struggled with that for so many years. Me too. And I did so much maintenance around that feature that I missed the amount of effort I needed to put into loving and accepting myself.
I struggle with that in recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Same.
People see me go up there and speak and share, and they're like, oh
Same.
my God. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, and then they get to know me, and it's like, well, I'm not, that's not who I am. I mean, that's a part of who I am. but there's still a whole other side of me.
Like,
you know?
listen, there are like layers here. Like you said, the layers. Yeah. It's so funny. I had to do this job interview. I did 4 interviews for this job. I'm like, what is this, rocket science? But they made me do a 15-minute presentation. And most people know me like, oh, Monica, she doesn't get scared of talking. Like she's talking all the time. But that's not fucking true. Like I was literally stomach sick that day. I was paranoid and like fearful. And so I have to tell people that. Like I have to go out of my way because I've gotten so good at maintaining a facade. I've gotten so good at masking my emotions. I've gotten so good at creating narratives. I've gotten so good at manipulating what I want you to see about me. Mm-hmm. Like, look over here, don't look over here, right? Mm-hmm. And, recovery and like my steps have really taught me how much I do that. That's a trauma response. Like if I do all of these things and if I create all these perfect dynamics, then maybe somebody won't leave me. If I do this and if I do that, maybe they will still love me. If I create this energy, maybe they'll stay, or I'll buy the drinks so my friends can hang out, we do that. And so now in recovery, it's the same thing. Like I want the right people to love me in these rooms. Like I want to be representative of our program. I want to share hope, but hey, maybe I just want to share who the fuck I am. Yeah. And that takes constant effort and work. Sometimes I say things even without discernment because I can't take it back later. So like this last week, I went with my sponsorship family to the lake, man, and I said some shit. I shared some shit that I know could get out and people could gossip about. But you know why I did it? Because tomorrow, the next day, Monica's not going to want to share that shit. That's too much. I don't want anybody to know that. Like, oh my God. Then I'm going to be held accountable to do something about it. So I shared it before I could fucking shift. I shared it so that they knew something I was walking through before I decided to take care of it by myself and not let anybody know till I was good. And that's something that gets me sick and unwell. I've done that before in my life where like I don't tell people I'm in a toxic situation until it's too late. It's kind of like the cry of help before the cry of help, Yeah. So I with trust, it's fickle because I get why people don't trust. Yeah. But you got to ask yourself, what is that even about? Yeah. And what coping skill or mechanism is that? Why are we working so hard to make sure that everybody we talk to is trustworthy? Are you giving them your money? Well, yeah, then, be careful with that. But if you're giving them parts of yourself or saying things about yourself, people can say what they want. You might not share any of that shit and someone's still going to go behind your back and talk shit about you. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I feel like authenticity is 100%. Really closely related to trust. Like,
and I'll say this and we'll kind of think we're coming to an end for sure. All of this stuff's hard. Trusting people, being vulnerable, being honest about who you are. It's difficult. But what other option do we have?
Right.
Like we can sit here and keep making excuses. It's hard and this happened. And look, I've had a lot of traumatic experiences, more than I could fucking list. 9 out of 10, right? Maybe not a 10 out of 10, but a 9 out of 10, right? Like a rough childhood, rough all that. By the time you're an adult, like the truth is, like the world doesn't care.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we have to do something about our fucking problem. If not, we're gonna be 60 years old, still complaining about the same shit, still blaming our parents for the fucked up childhood, still blaming the world around us for our drug use and the reason why we can't hold on to relationships. Like at the end of the day, life is fucking scary. My sponsor told me something maybe like a month ago. He's like, I'm fucking proud of you because I go through things, right? And he's like, I'm fucking proud of you. And I was like, for what? He's like, dude, because you're choosing to live. Like you're choosing to make big decisions that the old Adam would have been scared to make. Shit's tough. Beautiful. Shit's hard, but like, what am I going to do?
But we can do hard things.
Right.
That's what recovery teaches us. We can do hard things.
What are we going to do?
We can feel these fucking feelings and not get loaded.
Right. Absolutely. And not just that, but like, we could either face life head on or fucking go back to our little fucking cave, get loaded, like not experience any real life. Like there's a lot of scary things. Me and Mike have scary things that are going to come into our lives when it comes to money and this and businesses and all that stuff. All that stuff is scary, but it's like, who the fuck isn't scared?
Yeah, I'm in a scary season right now, so I feel you. Absolutely.
Who the fuck isn't scared of something? But I mean, like, we could either fucking stay where we're at in life, which is, for me, is not an option, right? Or we could fucking like face some fucking fears and do it, bro. I don't believe that courage is the absence of fear. I believe that in spite of fear, right, in spite of doubt, like we just fucking suit up and show up. And I'll tell you one thing, being vulnerable with my sponsor Willie was the greatest thing I've ever did for myself, bro. Being able to let down those masks, and I wasn't like you. I didn't get clean and like all, and the mask went, like I got clean and I was still holding on to a lot of masks and thinking I was this and thinking I was that. But when I sat down with Willie and I was able to let that shit go and just say, look, this is the truth about me. I'm fucking scared. I've done a lot of fucked up things. A lot of fucked up things that have happened to me. I've done embarrassing things that are degrading, and that was like that's when the doors just opened. And I was like, man, like if he could accept me for who I am, because I think a lot of us had that fear, like meeting up with our sponsor. If I really tell you who I am, are you still gonna invite me in your home? Right. And once I opened up to him and he got to see more of me than anybody else in this world ever has in the past. Right. And he accepted me and still like invited me over and still called me and still answered my calls. I was like, okay, if he could accept me for who I am, not just my past, right? The past is easy. I was loaded, right? But who I am today, then maybe, just maybe, like there's other people that are going to love me the same way. And for people who don't love me in the same way because they know my past experience in recovery, they know who I used to be, or they know like some of the fucked up things, that's okay too. You guys could sit over at that table and recover, and I'll sit over here at this table and recover. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. That's the benefits of being vulnerable. Yeah. You get to believe the love you get.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
It's hard sometimes. Yeah. All right, Monica, one last question before we wrap it up. If you can give somebody was in your position or went through some of the same things that you did, what's one piece of advice you could give them?
I would say that you're not responsible for what happened to you, but you are responsible for what you do with it, what you react to it. And honestly, just pick up the pen and write your own fucking story. Write your own fucking story. Okay, that happened. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do with it? You know, we get to turn our pain into purpose today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you for
all you guys who are listening, we really appreciate it. For all you guys who are listening, please like, subscribe, share this story with anybody who you feel needs to hear Monica's story. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms, which is TikTok and Instagram. And it is the Messages Hope podcast with _ between each word. And we'll talk to you guys next week.
But you'll never know unless you walked up in my shoes. As someone who struggled with addiction in the past, how does it feel to be able to give hope to others who are still struggling now?
You know, it's such an honor to be able to hear other people's experiences of life, to see how when faced with the very thing that was sent to destroy you, kill you and take you off forever didn't, but rather you have been given a second chance to give hope and be a light for those who are still in the dark. So don't be afraid to share your message to the world. You never know whose life you might be saving.